Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Graying Jedi podcast. I am UrzaMaster. Joining me as always, Lord Uther and Jedi Master Psyllium Maas. Gentlemen, welcome back. This is our 50th episode of the Graying Jedi, and we continue to gray as we go deeper and deeper into that galaxy far, far away, and the stories that enthrall, enlighten, inform, and sometimes, as we'll see soon, let us down a little bit. But this episode of The Mandolorian Season 3, The Pirate, is probably one of the better picks we could have made for episode 50 of the Graying Jedi podcast. And before I spoil any more of the excitement and fun of this episode, I turn it over to our resident Jedi Master Psyllium Maas for everything back behind the scenes of The Pirate.
Thank you, Jedi Master UrzaMaster. Thank you, Jedi Master Lord Uther. And thank you, Graying Jedi fans. We took a brief pause in Season 3 last week to share our thoughts, recollections on Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Make sure, if you haven't yet, to check that out. We are now 2/3 of the way through the original prequel trilogy of George Lucas's Star Wars saga, with Episode 3 dropping right after we complete our journey here through Season 3 of The Mandalorian. This is Chapter 21, The Pirate, and it first aired on March 29th, 2023. The writer was showrunner-creator Jon Favreau. The director was Peter Ramsey. Now, Peter comes to us as an illustrator and storyboard artist. He was the first African-American director of a U.S. studio animated film. It was called Rise of the Guardians. It came out in 2012, and if you haven't seen it, it's a little zany. It posits that all of these holiday heroes, from Santa Claus to the Easter Bunny, they all team up as like a crime-fighting force. Think Suicide Squad, but with holiday heroes. It was called Rise of the Guardians. I believe it was based on a graphic novel or a book series. It was a franchise that never got off the launching pad, but DreamWorks Animation put a lot of money into it back then. And like I said, just for the sheer audacity of the concept, it might be worth checking out. Surely the kids will enjoy it. And then he rebounded 6 years later from that disappointment at the box office, and he co-directed Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the first of the Sony animated trilogy, and that one was received much, much better. Not only did it make a ton of money in its December release, it also won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature that year, and Peter was once again the first African-American nominee and winner of a director for Into the Spider-Verse there. I remember walking out of that picture and saying, that wasn't just a good Spider-Man movie, that was a terrific movie. And those of you that have seen it and its sequel and its upcoming third installment coming out next year or early 2026, you know what we're talking about. He grew up in Crenshaw, and he's a Catholic. And we have seen Peter before on Ahsoka. He did episode 4 of Dave Filoni's Rebels continuation that we've covered here on the Graying Jedi. You can go back and see how we felt on Fallen Jedi. And that's the episode in which Ahsoka and Sabine Wren tangle with Baylan Skoll and his apprentice, and it appears Ahsoka is cast into the waves, and when she awakens, she is in the world between worlds with Anakin Skywalker's ghost looming large over her. Cut to black credits. So that was Peter's work on that series. So the man knows his way around high-density action. He's versed in genre, so he was a good selection to helm the Pirate. Returning cast members, Carl Weathers, the late Carl Weathers, once again as Greef Karga. We have Paul Sun Young Lee returning as New Republic pilot Carson Teva. We have Katie M. O'Brien as that nefarious Ella Kane, former Imperial officer, but as we glimpsed in a prior chapter this season, still up to no good. Emily Swallow, of course, just a towering sense of authority and power as the armorer. And SNL alum Tim Meadows, who, again, playing bureaucrat and a little bit of comic relief, but not overselling the comedy. It's kind of a hybrid, if you will, because the discussions are of a somewhat serious nature, but he does get to have a little levity in his performance. This is crucial because future guest stars on The Mandalorian may not know where the guardrails are in terms of delivering a performance. I think Tim Meadows, who is widely accepted as a comic actor, has worked in SNL and the Goldbergs and other countless sitcoms and movies, I think he knows where the line is and how he can, maybe approach it without ever fully stepping over it and breaking whatever mood you might be seeing and trying to create in the Star Wars universe. As I was watching him, despite being a very familiar face, I accepted that he was this New Republic cubicle, worker who was not going to be very helpful to Carson and his requests. And so that, when you can preserve the illusion despite being well known, good on you. And that's called foreshadowing, fans. If you think we might be going somewhere further down the road, you'll see. You'll see. We had the first. Now remember, we've seen Ahsoka now, and we've covered it here on the Graying Jedi. But this was the first time this show, this season, aired before Ahsoka even went before the cameras. So we had the first Rebels character appear in, quote, live action, even though he was fully CGI. That was Zeb. You saw him in the bar talking with Carson before he went off to Coruscant. There were also cameos in the foreground. If you go back and watch that scene again, you have Deborah Chow, Rick Famuyiwa, and Dave Filoni, who have also portrayed X-Wing pilots. They're the ones who blew up that Pirates space station in Season 1 when Mando did the prison break and then everyone tried to turn the tables on him. They're in the 3 X-Wings who show up and zap that thing to obliteration. We're on Navarro. We've got a clever "he shot first." Carl Weathers, Grief Karga delivers that little wink wink to the fans there, talking about the pirates when Gorian Shard accuses him of killing his team. I love "this isn't a rebellion anymore" line from, I think that was Tim Meadows, to Carson. Again, Jon Favreau using just one line of dialogue to show how the New Republic wants to take steps forward and yet is, in most accounts, at least as we're seeing it now, sort of this imperfect bureaucracy. I mean, again, it's the kind of thing that Tony Gilroy might explore in Andor, just in terms of, at the end of the day, it's not about just X-Wings and missions and blowing up the Death Star. I mean, it's all of these data chips that have to be entered, and the droid keeps bringing me 3 more trays, and I can't wait to just punch out and walk through the Coruscant nightlife square with like a strange candy, ice cream, cotton candy hybrid, and just, unplug from all of that. So it's interesting. It's a nice layering, but it's laying the seeds for the rise of the First Order that we get later, in that the New Republic just seems to be over their heads. They saved the galaxy, they liberated the galaxy, but it takes a lot to run a galaxy, or at least keep it from tearing itself apart in its throat there. I love the reveal that R5-D4, whom we've always associated with as kind of being incompetent or afraid or, always breaking down, it turns out he was a top Republic asset. And he's the one who gave, because you're saying to yourself, how did Carson find the Mandalorian covert? Well, he got a signal from his old war buddy, R5-D4. I thought that was terrific. I liked Paz Vizsla. I mean, again, you're talking about sort of a supporting character. He might have 1 or 2 beats each episode, if he's lucky. but we've seen that character over 3 seasons, all the way back to season 1, and how he's gone from, being a rival and a fierce antagonist to Din Djarin and his cause in The Mandalorian, to now standing shoulder to shoulder with him and being what allies, the Mandalorian fighting force to help liberate Navarro. And, I'll let you guys touch in on basically what is at least a third of this episode, if not slightly more, the liberation of said Navarro, where you've got ship battles, you've got ground-to-ground combat, you've got all sorts of things going on, cutting back and forth. And then we should talk about the ending, because I think Emily Swallow and Katie Sackhoff deliver some much-needed, again, gravity, and it doesn't feel hokey. They're talking about mythology, religion, faith, but it all feels like you're holding your breath at the decisions that are made and the courses that are chosen here, because we know what the stakes are for these Mandalorians. They've been cast out of good society. They don't have a home. They follow this strict code, and yet now the armorer is showing a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of a bend, a little bit of we have to take a new posture. So a lot to chew on, gentlemen. What did the Kyber crystals tell you?
It's a stare down. I'm going to take this one because I think this might be my favorite episode of The Mandalorian so far, for a number of reasons. I think that Carl Weathers is phenomenal in this episode. He comes across as like the true statesman, as a direct foil to the New Republic, and I think to Tim Meadows in this episode, who did deliver a very muted but poignant comic performance as just a bureaucrat. He's like, look, I'm in requisitions. What do you require? You know what I mean? And you get so much of this thought process of like, the whole galaxy knows the New Republic is inept. They can't protect the mid-rim, which is, you're talking the core planets, the mid-rim, that's a lot, in terms of sheer size and scope. But if they're struggling to protect, like, the 2 most populated key realms, how on earth do they expect to override what might be going on in the Outer Rim? But there's still heart, you still have the heart there. And I think the nice thing about what Carl Weathers does is he shows that the Outer Rim can really take care of itself. It's just lacking in the resources, as it always has been. And that doesn't mean the resources don't exist. It just means that a lot of them, Mandalore and similar planets, were stamped out by the Empire. So there's enough, not necessarily anti-New Republic, but there's enough like, we don't need them. And there's enough, these folks could step up and become the new guardians of the galaxy, I guess, to not put it in a Marvel term. Oh, walked into that one. Hey, Disney. I just think that it brings these 2 forces together, the sort of outer rim dwelling systems, with Mandalore as sort of their new champion. Very real chance. And I personally think this is why the armorer kind of sways her opinion some, is she sees that, look, this group of humans, or this group of people who were very much against Mandalorian presence, or perhaps their values, or their proliferation, are now saying, look, we made a mistake. We'll give you a huge plot of land, help us defend ourselves. We'll let you grow a life here. You guys can raise your families, you can do your thing, practice your religion, whatever. That's an opportunity. And now you have Bo-Katan Kryze among your ranks, who has sort of seen the light, but could also bring together far more tribes of Mandalore that exist out there by just being herself, being perhaps the leader she was meant to be. And now all of a sudden you go from like, the 12 of us have a place to live, to we might be able to go back to Mandalore and actually relight the forge, restart our whole existence, and truly be somebody. Because now you've got one planet that word of mouth, right? It's just like advertising. Hey, Mandalore's back, and that's going to scare off Empire presence. It's going to be something that the New Republic, being that they're typically the good guys, they may want to leverage and ally with. There's a lot of good potential here. And being that the armorer builds things, is seeing that there's a chance to build out a new Mandalore presence. And that, to me, is like the vehicle that this episode is driving. It's trying to line these pieces up so that something truly impactful for Mandalorians can happen. And in that, you get awesome, like, ship-to-ship battle. You get an awesome battle in the streets. You get, Mandalore's kicking butt. You get an N1 fighter taking on a very large, like, destroyer-class ship, which is just dope. And there's no cheats, right? I mean, Mandalorians are getting injured right and left, but it's a very Western-style shootout at the OK Corral. Both sides are taking some casualty, but the good guys win. It's feel good. It just feels cathartic for Star Wars. Like, the suppressed people is rising up to save those around it, not unlike the Jedi in the original trilogy. It is a rebellion, in a sense, coming up through the ranks, having some grassroots presence, and you get so much Star Wars in one episode. You get an X-Wing, you get the Rebellion, you get the Republic, you get mentions of the Empire, you get some flashes of the First Order that are coming, you get pirates, you get a Western-style shootout, you get a urban battle, you get a space battle. I mean, you get droids, you get a little Grogu. Come on. I mean, could this not be any more perfect episode of Star Wars anything? I'm hard pressed.
And you get Pizza the Hutt, who is flying that massive ship. Yeah, I what I found interesting is this idea of, it's almost like they moved the Empire out, and then the Rebellion just moved right into the former headquarters and everything. It's like, oh, we got to clean up this mess now, and this is a tedious thing. I mean, to me, Tim Meadows is just loathing the idea that he has to, put these requisitions through and clean up this Empire mess. That's all it seems like, and they're not doing a good job of it, right? It's getting away from them, or they don't care as much as they should. The real fight's over. The Empire's not going to come back. We'll get to it eventually, and you got to process these TPS reports. That's totally what it feels like, right? And that's the vibe he's giving off too. And then I do like that idea of, it's almost like you're seeing a rebellion within the rebellion, with the Mandalorians kind of coming together. And I think it's setting it up for them to, or maybe, I keep saying these kind of things, or maybe it's just my hope. We're going to see them in the next trilogy movies. Maybe see them with Thrawn. Who knows? But again, that's my hope of hopes there. I like the Din Djarin, Bo-Katan just playing off of each other, coming up with strategery as they're flying around. It makes you hope that they get together, right? You're kind of getting that feeling, husband and wife, Grogu is the child, and these amazing things that they can do together. It's something that we all are going to see, and I like the idea of, you have to give in a little bit to make things happen, and that's what the Armorer does, right? I'm going to give in. It's a new way. I feel like she was maybe making it up on the fly just a little bit, but she had a good reason to do so. Excuse me. We've got to make this work, so we're going to give in a little bit, and now we're just that much stronger for it. But sometimes to be successful, you've got to give up your pride and your stubbornness and thinking you know it all and compromise. And that's what we kind of get at the end. This is going to wind up wind up happening. And I kind of like, too, that it wasn't a Grogu-centered completely episode. I think that was another nice little take there. So, agree 100%. Like, it had all these pieces. And by the way, how lucky are we to have television like this and not Star Wars, the holiday special? Because that was the Star Wars TV you were getting for a long time, folks. It was that. Like, that's all there was. And now you're getting movie-style space battles on screen. And we should be so thankful for that, even though the next episode is absolutely horrible. But we're getting all that now. And I think that's something we're pretty lucky to have. But yeah, great episode all around.
So it begs the question, my fellow Jedi Masters, what color kyber crystal does this episode fire up for you three? I'm going to go to Psyllium Maas here. Jedi Master Psyllium Maas, where doth your lightsaber igniteth?
It's Yoda green, folks. Yoda green. And Yoda man. I think we should quickly also mention everything that we just said was fantastic. I love the sort of little mini tag ending. Plays like an ice-cold horror movie with an Imperial Lambda shuttle disabled and adrift in space. Carson Teva sending in an astromech drone and piecing together as a screenwriter, I always love it when you're like on the phone or on the radio with somebody and they're like checking. I think that's Moff Gideon's shuttle, and then and then everything, like there's the look on Carson Teva's face, and then he's like, and there's something in the wall, and he's like, and it's Beskar, and then the guy's like, you think the Mandalorians broke him out, and then directed by Peter Ramsey. So a fantastic tag ending to set up. Who knows where the last few episodes of season 3 goes? We know, and we're going to tell you in future installments of the Graying Jedi. Please tune in.
Lord Uther?
I would go an Elden Ring green because I want Din Djarin to put a ring on it and marry it. So let's get this Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, King and Queen of Mandalore going. Maybe things get changed up there. The rules get changed, the laws get changed, and they live heavily. My cold medicine is completely kicked in right now. Happily ever after with their Grogu. So, green.
Very fair, very fair. I would love to see Bo-Katan and Din Djarin hitch up for Mandalore's sake. But then I would have to say I've lost my shot with Bo-Katan Kryze. But I am also going green, and I'm going Mike Ditka, Ultimate Football, Green Bay Packer green. By the way, if you have an IBM AT, you could play this game on 5 1/4 inch floppy. Not to tease our other podcast here, in which we talk a little bit about the bears. The only bears in Star Wars are Ewoks.
Yes.
As far as I know.
I want to know how much money Mike Dick got for that game there. Was it 20 grand or was it
38 cents a copy, maybe.
You never know. Maybe some Polish sausages. It could have been that.
This is definitely one of my favorite episodes. Mandalorian absolutely nailed it with this one, which we will talk next week in episode 51 about how wrong they could go after this. But until we get back to this galaxy far, far away, I just want to say to everyone out there, Mandalorian, Jedi, otherwise, may the Force be with you.
And also
Always.
with Christian McCaffrey.